Welcome to Off the Shelf with Christine and Katie. Are you ready to hit the road for a summer road trip?
We are.
They are such a great way to explore different places along the way.
But maybe travel just isn't your thing. How about taking a literary tour from the tour of your own home? Sounds like an introvert's dream.
So join us as we travel through the Southeastern Coastal States with these books that give you a little taste for the history and culture of each area.
So as always, settle in, grab a cup of your favorite beverage, and enjoy these recommendations. And feel free to read them now or add them to your TBR list for the future.
And don't forget to let us know in the comments what you think of these picks and if you have anything else to add.
And if you wish to be notified of new videos, be sure to like and subscribe below.
But as always, let's get to those books. So Katie, why don't you start us off in our first stop of West Virginia?
Yes. So this very famous book, in my opinion, is The Glass Castle by Jeanette Walls. And this memoir is about the author's childhood with their charismatic but unreliable dysfunctional parents. The family lived as nomads, struggling with poverty, eventually spending much of her childhood in Welch, West Virginia. Despite their hardships, the sibling learned early on to rely on each other and eventually escape their upbringing to live successful lives in New York City.
Nice. Then we have Rocket Boys by Homer H. Hickman. This memoir tells the story of a group of young men in 1957 Coalwood, West Virginia, who become fascinated with rockets after the launch of Sputnik.
Can't blame them.
They build their own rockets from scrap materials, challenging the constraints of their small coal mining town and pursuing their dreams of space exploration.
Okay, and our next traveling recommendation is called The Truth According to Us by Annie Barrows. And taking place in 1938 Macedonia, West Virginia, the story follows 12-year-old Willa Roman as she navigates her slightly eccentric family. Probably an understatement. Enter Layla Beck, a young woman exiled to Macedonia by her senator father, who finds work on the Federal Writers Project. As Layla investigates the town and Willa her family history, secrets are brought to light that change their lives forever as well as the town. Dun 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 dun.
Then we have Sleeping Beauties by Stephen King and his son Owen King. And in this dystopian novel, a mysterious illness causes women all across the world to fall into a deep sleep, shrouded in a cocoon-like gauze. If they are awakened or the gauze is disturbed, they become violent.
Great.
One woman, Evie, is immune to the sickness, which leads to a battle between those who want to study her and those who want to eliminate her.
Okay, and our next stop on this road trip is the state of Virginia. And our first recommendation is called Hang the Mood by, once again, Jeanette Walls. And this is a historical fiction novel set in Prohibition-era Virginia, focusing on the Kincaid family and their involvement in the bootlegging industry. Always fun. The story centers around Sally Kincaid, the daughter of Duke Kincaid, a powerful figure in the town who was forced to step up and lead the family business after Duke's death.
Women bootleggers.
Women bootleggers. That is really interesting.
Then we have Demon Copperhead by Barbara Kingsolver. And this is a modern retelling of Charles Dickens' A David Copperfield. And it's set in the Appalachian Mountains, following the life of a boy named Demon, who faces poverty, addiction, and systemic failures. The story chronicles Demon's experiences in foster care, child labor, the opiate crisis, and his struggle to survive in a community grappling with addiction and poverty.
As if that wasn't enough.
A little bit heavy book there.
Yeah, a little bit. Okay, and this next recommendation is a book that I really love. It's called The House of Leaves by Mark Z. Danielewski. And this psychological horror is about a young man who finds a manuscript called the Davidson Records, which highlights the anomalies of a house in Virginia. This book is really two stories told consecutively through a series of clippings, manuscripts, and footnotes, not to easily read in a traditional linear manner, but it's definitely worth the read and a lot of fun.
Then we have Last Man Standing by David Baldacci. And this is about Webb London, an FBI hostage rescue team member, and he's the sole survivor of a deadly ambush. Amidst suspicion and blame from his colleagues and the families of those who were killed, Webb embarks on a personal investigation to uncover the truth behind the ambush and find the killer.
All right, and our next stop on this bookish road trip is North Carolina. Okay, and And our first recommendation on this stop is The Heiress by Rachel Hawkins. And this suspense thriller tells the tale of Ruby McTavish, an infamous heiress and widow 4 times over, who is remembered for her kidnapping as a child and the mysterious death of her husband, as if she's Evelyn Hugo. When she leaves Ashby House, her estate in the Blue Ridge Mountains of North Carolina, as well as her entire fortune to her adopted son, strange things begin to happen.
Next up, we're going to Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens. This novel tells the story of Kaya, a young girl raised alone in the marshlands of North Carolina after being abandoned by her family. When a local boy is found dead, she becomes the prime suspect, leading to a trial that reveals the complexities of her relationship with nature and the townspeople.
Very interesting. Okay, and one of our favorite books is Garden Spells by Sarah Addison Allen. And in this magical realism novel, the Waverly family in Bascom, North Carolina, possesses unique gifts, including a family garden, rumored to have magical properties, especially its enchanted apple tree. The story centers on 2 sisters, Claire and Sydney, and their reconciliation after a decade of separation. And this is perfect for fans of practical magic. Trust me, this is everything you want.
And then we have The Last Castle by Denise Kiernan. And this nonfiction read tells the story of George, Commodore Vanderbilt's grandson, and his quest to build a European-inspired summer estate. This house would become the Biltmore Estate, the largest single-family home ever built in America. More than just a lavish home, the construction provided a boom to the economy of rural Asheville, North Carolina, forever transforming the area. I've seen this house. It is massive. I've never been inside it yet, but yeah, it really is a castle.
That's cool. Okay, and now moving along, we have now entered South Carolina. And our first recommendation is, of course, How to Sell a Haunted House by Grady Hendrix. And this is set in the lovely city of Charleston. This unique horror/mystery story follows the strange fate of Louise and Mark Joyner, a strange sibling who are forced to sell their family home when their parents die. But why did the mom cover all the mirrors? And why is the attic door nailed shut? These are questions we need answered.
We need to know. Then we have another one of our favorites, Other Birds by Sarah Addison Allen. This is right off the coast of South Carolina on Mallow Island, the Delawisp sits. It is a stunning cobblestone building shaped like a horseshoe and named after the tiny turquoise birds who inhabit an air of magical secrecy. When Zoe comes to claim her deceased mother's apartment on Mallow Island, she meets her quirky and secretive neighbors, including a girl on the run, 2 estranged middle-aged sisters, a lonely chef, a legendary writer, and 3 ghosts.
As you do.
Each with their own story, and each with their own longings, and each whose ending is not written yet.
Yes, and if you're a fan of found family, this is absolutely made for you. Okay, and our next recommendation is called The Dead Romantics by Ashley Poston. Great one to follow up. This is a romantic comedy about Florence, a romance ghostwriter who can actually see ghosts. How intriguing!
Very much.
Who returns to her hometown in Merrimont, South Carolina, from New York after a bad breakup and her father's death, as if she hasn't had enough yet, to help prepare for his funeral. While there, she encounters the ghost of her new editor, Benji, and she must help him resolve his unfinished business so he can move on. Has this girl had enough?
So next we're going to break away from the ghost with a little bit of a nonfiction pick. This is The Demon of Unrest by Eric Larson.
Does sound like it could be a ghost story.
It does. It recounts the tumultuous 5 months between Abraham Lincoln's election in 1860 and the start of the Civil War in April 1861 at Fort Sumter in Charleston, South Carolina. It focuses on the key events and figures that led to the outbreak of hostilities, highlighting the chaos and division within the nation. And if you've never read Eric Larson, a lot of his nonfiction reads just like a novel.
It does.
It's wonderful. Okay, next stop we're going to is Georgia.
Yay! And our first one, very fittingly, is called Surviving Savannah by Patty Callahan. And this historical fiction novel explores the true story of a family aboard the steamship Pulaski in 1838, which exploded off the coast of Savannah, Georgia. Great start. Interwoven is the modern-day story of Everly, who, while researching the wreckage artifacts for a museum exhibit, comes across the story of this family, in particular two women, Augusta and her niece Lily. Their heartbreaking decisions as the ship sank led to two very different fates.
Then we have Lula Dean's Little Library of Banned Books by Kirsten Miller.
Cute.
Lula Dean, driven by her ideals of what constitutes appropriate reading material, establishes a makeshift lending library in front of her house in the small town of Troy, Georgia. But unbeknownst to her, local school board member Beverly swaps the dust covers of her wholesome books with those of banned titles, secretly adding forbidden books to Lula's library.
That's so funny. Okay, and our next recommendation is called The Love Song of W.E. Du Bois by Honoré Fanon-Givert. And this epic novel follows the multi-generational history of a black family in Georgia, tracing their experiences from the colonial slave trade through the Civil War and up to present day. I know a lot of people love this book.
All right, we're going to end Georgia with The Color Purple by Alice Walker. And this novel tells the story of Celie, a young black woman in rural Georgia. Through her letters to God, Celie chronicles her life, marked by abuse as well as loss, and her journey towards love, healing, and a deeper understanding of herself and the world around her.
Okay, and now we end our travels in the state of Florida. And our first recommendation is The Nickel Boys by Colson Whitehead. And this 2020 Pulitzer Prize winning novel tells the story of Elwood and Turner, who are wrongly sentenced in the 1960s to the Nickel Academy, a brutal Florida reform school. Elwood, initially naive, befriends the more hardened Turner, and their friendship deepens as they navigate the horrors of the academy. While the story is fiction, it is based on the real-life Arthur G. Dozer School for Boys.
Okay, next up we have Bad Monkey by Carl Hiaasen. And this is a humorous, satirical book following former Miami PD officer Andrew Yancey, who finds himself embroiled in a case involving a human arm found on a Key West fishing trip.
Great way to find it.
The investigation, despite being unofficial, leads Yancey and his quirky circle of friends to a series of increasingly bizarre encounters, including a voodoo witch, a corrupt real estate developer, and a diaper-wearing monkey.
As you do. Okay, and our last recommendation are Their Eyes Were Watching God by Zora Neale Hurston. This novel is about a black woman, Janie Crawford's attempt to find true love in the midst of racially segregated Florida. Over the course of the novel, Janie marries 3 times. It is her third marriage to a man named Tea Cake, who shows her what love is really like. Through her experience, she learns about love, identity, and her place in the world, ultimately returning to her roots in Eatonville, Florida, after a long absence with a newfound sense of peace and independence. That's so nice.
That's sweet.
It is.
And now we have a little announcement to make. Some good news and some different news.
So everyone, this is very bittersweet for me, but I have accepted another position at another library. I want to let everyone know I've really enjoyed starting the show with Christine. This really kicked off our friendship here at the library, so I have no regrets.
So our show may continue on, a little bit different format, some new faces. You'll still be seeing me, and we'll be channeling some of the wonderful recommendations that Katie always has.
Yes, but thanks again to everyone who's watched Off the Shelf and helped us build this show. We started it during the pandemic, and it has really grown since then, and some people just come up to us in the library just saying how great the show is, and they didn't even realize we worked here. You know, we couldn't have seen where the show had taken it, but I'm infinitely grateful, and I can't wait to see where it goes. I will still be watching as a viewer, and I'm immensely proud of what me and Christine built. I know it will continue to build and flourish.
So until next time, we see you.
Happy reading.
Happy reading.
Take care.
Take care.